It is Monday, May 29th. Welcome. I missed last week with it being the Victoria Day weekend. I hope you had a wonderful long weekend and enjoyed the sunshine wherever you are. We've had some amazing weather here in Ontario, and it's going to be gorgeous for the next week ahead. So for tonight's card in our Creative Escape, we're going to do this silhouette technique, and I'm excited to share that with you. But first, I just wanted to mention, if you're watching live, please let me know in the comments. Love to connect with you this way. And if you're watching the replay, leave me a note and let me know where you're from and what you thought of this card. So this card here was made with Earthen Textures, which is a new bundle in our 2023-2024 annual catalog, and I literally fell in love with this. This is very, very different from the other cards I made on the weekend with it. Given the type of images in here, I was really drawn to new colors like copper clay and pecan pie and greens and pretty peacock, those kind of colors. And I thought, well, I've got to try to do something with it and use other different colors, not so much of the regal shades in our in colors. So that's how this one came about here. So we are going to use a couple of stamps in here. We're going to use the two pots. So let's get those out. So one thing you'll notice what I do with my stamp sets that are bundles is I get these plastic on one side and magnetic sheet on the other. Some of them are big enough to hold all the dies from the set, but they have a plastic sleeve on the other side that you can slide them in. And I just tuck those into my stamp set, and then they all stay together. Some of the dies that you have that might be circles or hexagons or ovals or squares, those I keep out, which I would use with anything, but these ones are specific to this stamp set. So that's what I do with them. So here is the large urn, and I'm going to put that on a block. And I'm going to take the small urn, and I'm going to put that one on a block. And then we also need these two sprays. That really doesn't matter. We've got 3 to choose from in this stamp set. And I think for the big one, this one works well because it has a lot of feathering in the, it's kind of a wheat, I guess I would say, piece of fern. And then this one here, I use this tall one for that. So we'll use those. And then I wanted to use a greeting up here. One thing I noticed, and you might see these on a card, hi Brenda, on a stamp set rather, I noticed that there's a lot more of the rubber at the top here on the greeting, and I might actually take my scissors and snip that off because I found that it was easy for that to get ink on it and transfer. So I'm going to make a thank you card with this thank you greeting here. So we'll grab that one. There we go. And so those are the stamps I'm going to use from the set. I'm not going to use the dies, that's okay, but we're going to have some fun with the techniques. So let's get a couple of more blocks out here. Those two. So, and I suggested that you might like to use 3 colors and a neutral. And I found that black on this technique, while lovely, might be just a little too dark for me, for my liking. And I'm not worried about this one being off the block a little bit because I'm actually going to mask the back. We don't really need what's behind there. We can do some masking on that. So I'll show you how we do that. And I need a little bit bigger block for this one. Let's see, what have we got in our little treasure trove over here? Will this one fit on here? Yep. That thank you fits on here just fine on a diagonal. There we go. Actually, I'm going to switch these guys out because that will fit fine on there. Okay, so I will show you what I'm working with. One of these is a brand new color. It's called Lemon Lolly, and it's a beautiful soft yellow. It's actually the color of the card base for my card. And then my layer is in Lost Lagoon. So we're going to do a little bit of work with Lost Lagoon, and then Calypso Coral in the middle. So those are the 3 colors that I've got on my card. And then for the neutral, I picked Pebbled Path, which is an in color. And it is a little bit lighter. A gray would work well too, but I just found these were rather warm colors, and it was kind of a perfect neutral to go with that. So we'll tuck that aside. We don't need that right away, and we'll move our stamps out of the way here because they're all going to be in Pebbled Path. All right, we are going to do Lemon Lolly, Calypso Coral in the middle, and Lost Lagoon at the bottom on a piece of basic white. Here's our pieces here. Our basic white is 3 3/4 by 5, and it goes on to a 4 by 5 1/4 of the Lost Lagoon. Now, if you want to save yourself a little paper, you can punch or die cut something out of this interior layer. If you like, that's just one more way to save your paper, or you can even put it in your paper trimmer and just cut in the center and have another piece to use. And then I needed to put the score line on this. So this is a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So I'm going to score it 4 1/4 by 11. I'm going to score it halfway at 5 1/2. And that's our Lemon Lolly card base. Let's give that a little press. And our Lost Lagoon, which I can glue down, and then we'll be ready to get going with our technique. And I also am going to cut out another piece. I want to show you that as I get going here. And that's going to be a bit of a mask piece, and that's where we get this beautiful bit of white behind the card. It looks complicated, but it's not. All right, so we're going to set this aside. And then I have a piece of scrap, and on this one I use the deckled rectangles, which is just kind of a fancy edged rectangle. This one I'm going to use the Country Corners die. So I'm just using a piece of scrap that's 3 by 4 1/4, and that die just fits perfectly on there. And that's going to be the masking piece on this one. So these dies will fit nicely in the mini Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. So I'm just lining that up here off camera. And whoops, run this through. Sorry, it's going to shake the table a wee bit. There we go. And voila, we have a die cut. And we're going to stick this on top of the white, and we're going to do our blending beyond that. We want to take this off though, so we're going to use some temporary adhesive. And Stampin' Up! Doesn't sell that anymore, but there's a removable adhesive by Tombow that I pick up at a craft store, and which I can put on the back. It's temporary, it won't leave a mark, and but holds it in place just as you need it for a short period of time. So I'm going to try to do my best to center this top to bottom, left to right. An oval would be really nice. We don't currently have any ovals in our set of dies, and so I will use that when we get some again. All right, we're going to start with Lemon Lolly on top. I'm going to open that up, and these are our blending brushes. I have various ones. I don't have one for every color. This is what I use with yellows. This is one I use with the pinky Calypso Coral and sort of aqua and green ones. I just double check on here scratch paper to make sure that I don't have some obscure color that I'm going to now dip into the ink pad. So you just go over your ink pad in a circular motion, and starting off the page normally, but off the page is going to be this die cut that I've temporarily attached there. So I'm just going to start there. If I were to place the color immediately on the area where I want it to show, I could get a little blotch, because when you're pulling the color up like this, you're getting quite a bit of color on there to begin with. And let me just show you what I mean. If I was over here and I would just start like this, can sometimes end up with it being quite a bit darker than I would like. So I'm starting on the piece that's going to be removed and moving outwards in a circular fashion. I'm not having to do all of it. It's actually kind of nice when part of your paper is a little bit white around the edges. So there's that. Maybe a little bit more. Just a little bit more down. You can always overlap them too, your colors. So that's Lemon Lolly. The next one is going to be Calypso Coral. And you can get, when you get these blending brushes, they're in a pack of 3. And you can wash them and reuse them. They just stand to dry. They're like gazillions of little bristles. They're very soft. And so then we're going to add this color in the middle. I'm going to overlap that a little bit so it'll have a different color when it overlaps a bit. So every time you do this technique, your card's going to look a little different. And that's a-okay. I want this one to be a little darker. I found last time that it was a little lighter than I wanted. There we go. And we're not worried about what it looks like on this removable piece. And then, oh, maybe just a little bit lower. Just a little lower. You can use a sponge or a sponge dauber as well for this technique. I like these blending brushes. They're quite nice to work with. And then we're going to put our Lost Lagoon at the bottom. See how that went down quite dark? And I really just want it to be quite light when it gets over on the edges. So actually got quite a bit of color there. And that's okay. If something's too dark or too light, you can always go back over it. You could trim it as well if you end up with it being far too dark in one spot. And you want to lighten it up a little bit. And you just play with it and see what you like. All right, I think that's enough color for this part of the technique. We'll close those up and tuck them to the side. Hi, Kathy, thanks for joining us. And then because I put removable or repositionable adhesive on this, I can easily peel this piece off. And voila, we have the nice white underneath. It's just a piece of the removable adhesive. I suppose you could keep that and do something with it. Now we're going to do the stamping. And I'm going to need a little help from a sticky note here for the ferns that are going to go in. So I'm going to start with the small urn. One thing you'll find with this set is when you have the dies that the die cuts a little bit smaller than the stamped image. I think that's great because you actually get more sizes of it, really, if you have it stamped sitting beside a cutout piece. All right, so here's our pebbled path. We're going to ink this guy up, and you'll notice that it's also a little speckled on the edges, so you're not going to get full coverage. It's not designed to do that. That's just the way the card is, or the stamp is. And we'll put this a little off center just a bit. Okay, press and hold. It'll lighten up a little bit as it dries. And then we'll take the large one and do the same thing. Now, I noticed one edge of the large is curved and one edge is flat. And I'm going to go with the flat edge on the bottom. So to get some good coverage, I'm going to flip this guy over. Once again, it's designed to have that speckly look, so it's not going to fully add ink all over the stamp. You're not going to see that. And then we're going to add this guy here. A little lower, though, because it's quite tall. I want to have room for my greeting. Here we go. That's really nice coverage. Now, to add my leaves, I'm going to use a sticky note. These are just the 1x2s. And I want this to show up here, but I don't want all the bottom part to also show. So I'm going to take my sticky note, and I'm just going to put it here. And then, actually, there's 2 ways to do it. I can actually do it this way. Let me show you putting it on here. And then I can just ink up the top part of the stamp. I'm going to take a trial run, make sure I don't have too much ink. Nope. That's the fun of having a new stamp set. You get to figure out how it works. And then I'm going to put this over, and you'll see that when you lift this, you do not have that excess coming down below. So that piece is garbage. And we'll add this, do the same thing on the other piece of fern. And I'm sticking this just about a smidgen below the top of the stamp. And this is where the silhouette idea comes in. Is it getting down there? Maybe I need a little bit of ink there. I'm not sure my greeting's going to fit on this one. There we go. Here we are. And then I wanted to put the thank you. It may be, well, no, it'll be fine up here. Maybe a little bit bigger greeting than I was going for, and that's okay. And we'll just get this up here. So it's not a very dimensionalized type of stamp set and card. It's much more flat, but has a really nice effect. And you can add things to add more interest to it. So there's my greeting on there. I'm ready to glue it down. I could put ribbon around it. That's an option. Not going to do that. I'm going to add some embellishments. If you're making a whole bunch of cards, this would go really quickly. And I think the effect is quite nice. And then I'm going to look in my little treasure trove of various embellishments and see what might be nice. Let's see, we have the yellow matching Lolly Solid Gems. I've got lots of the small ones or medium-sized ones here to use. So I'll grab my scissors, or I'm going to take your pick tool. And we will put these. So the last time I was covering up a few little oopses, so I kind of put those in those spots. But on this one, let's see. We'll take this. We have 3 small ones left, so let's use the small ones. And it's a triangle you're kind of going for when you're adding gems. You're looking for that triangular, or if you're adding 5 or something, kind of look to draw the eye to one part. And that is the silhouette card. Very simple, very straightforward, and packs a punch. So thanks for being along for the ride with me. I really appreciate it. I'll post a picture of this with a link to my website, which gives you the link to the entire supplies list. And you can give this a go and let me know how it goes for you. Thanks for watching. Have a great evening. Bye now.